Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. I hope you're all doing super well. So welcome to today's video. Today we're going to be talking about what happened to 18-year-old Ursula Bahillo. This case is just so infuriating because Ursula was in an abusive relationship. She reported the abuse to the police, she asked them for help, she even told the police that she was in danger and that she feared for her life, but yet nothing was done to help her. This case is pretty well known in Argentina and even in other countries. I was actually able to find a lot of US articles with US reporters talking about her case because this just shocked the world. It shocked everyone. There's so much unfairness in this case, so much injustice, corruption. It's just absolutely terrible. And I feel like lately all the cases that I have been talking about lately are really terrible. And I've been reading your guys' comments lately, letting me know that these cases are really difficult to hear. And trust me, I know it's really difficult to research them. So while the cases are difficult to hear, they're definitely very important to talk about. With that, before we get into it, I quickly want to take a break to thank our sponsors who support this channel. Thank you to Rocket Money for sponsoring today's video and supporting this channel. I was taking a look at my finances the other day to see what my budget for 2024 will be, and that's when I realized that I'm spending way too much money on subscription services that I don't really need. There's just really no reason why I need to pay for 5 different streaming services. It's just too much, especially when I have a student loan to pay off and a wedding coming up. Thankfully, Rocket Money is here to help. Rocket Money is the app that you need to save more and manage your money better. This personal finance app allows you to manage subscriptions, lower your bills, make a custom budget, and grow your savings all in one place. I personally love using Rocket Money to cancel unwanted subscriptions. They safely and securely identify any recurring charges and will cancel these unwanted subscriptions for you. You can even cancel from within the app with just a couple of taps. No need to worry about customer service calls. Rocket Money has helped save its customers an average of $720 a year with over $500 million in canceled subscriptions. To save more and spend less, join the over 5 million members using Rocket Money today. Go to rocketmoney.com/Jackie Flores or click the link in the description box down below to get started for free. Thank you again to Rocket Money for sponsoring today's video. Ursula Bahillo was born in Argentina to her parents Patricia and Adolfo, and she was their only child. Her parents actually struggled for 10 long years to have a child, and they went through numerous treatments to become pregnant. Patricia had to deal with so many physical side effects, hospital visits, doctors, medical bills, and this was just really difficult for Patricia and Adolfo to emotionally deal with. I mean, I'm sure there's some people watching this that have been through the same thing, of trying to get pregnant and just going through everything. It's a lot for any person and any couple to go through. They really wanted a kid so badly, and for a long time it felt like that would never be possible. It was definitely a hard thing for the couple to go through, but thankfully Patricia eventually did become pregnant after 10 years of trying. It was a very delicate pregnancy, but on February 26, 2002, Ursula was born. Her parents were just the happiest people that you could imagine. Like, when they heard the news that Patricia was pregnant, they couldn't believe it. They just were over the moon with happiness. And then the day Ursula was born, they say that everything just felt perfect. They honestly felt like they were the luckiest people in the world to give birth to this daughter. They just wanted to spoil her and love her with all of their hearts and just give her the best life ever. Since she was an only child, her uncles, aunts, and grandparents just adored her so much, and everyone just felt so blessed to have her. Ursula and her mom were so close, and they just always wanted to be together. The entire family was just so happy about this. Patricia's sister, Graciela, was really close with her niece, Ursula. They would actually spend a lot of time together because Patricia would go to work, so she would ask her sister Graciela to watch her daughter. So the two of them had a really close bond. Now, I'm not sure where Patricia worked, but Adolfo, Ursula's father, owned an ice cream and a coffee shop in the city's town square, and Ursula would often go there to hang out with her friends. She would have her birthday parties there and just spend time there with her dad. Growing up, Ursula was very happy. She loved music, she loved dancing. She also also really liked to travel, and she would go on frequent vacations with her parents to the coast. Now, when Ursula was only 10 years old, she faced a really difficult time. She was actually diagnosed with breast cancer. Patricia says that this was incredibly difficult for the family and, of course, for Ursula. It was a battle to treat the cancer, and it really affected how Ursula thought of herself. Patricia spoke out about this and said that ever since Ursula had breast cancer, she would only wear sports bras. She never wanted to wear anything low cut. She never wore bikinis. She didn't have the same confidence that she had prior to the cancer. So it was just really difficult to battle this cancer at a very young age, but thankfully Ursula did overcome it. After overcoming the cancer, Ursula went on to continue to live her life. She absolutely loved Disney, and she made it a goal to go to Disney World in Florida, and when she was 15 years old, she achieved that goal. She was also a huge fan of the soccer club River Plate, and she had jerseys, and she would often go to the games with her dad. Her family says that she just had so many life goals and that she was a very motivated person. In 2019, she began studying psychopedagogy. I don't know if I pronounced that wrong. And she was studying this at a university just a little further from her home. But due to the pandemic, in-person classes were canceled and she had to return home. Back at home, she began studying geriatric care to take care of residents in elderly homes. And at the same time, she was also studying to become a grade school teacher. So she had a lot on her plate. You know, she was a busy girl. She was very studious and she was just so excited about her future. As for her personal life, she had close friends whom she really trusted, and they have come out and spoken about her, you know, after the case happened, and they just only had good things to say about Ursula. You know, all of her friends were like, she was just a good person. Like, there's really nothing bad we can say about her. She was always in a good mood. Even if it was like first thing in the morning, she was always very cheery and just happy, and everyone just loved spending time with her. Everything honestly seemed to be going well, but unfortunately, the same cannot be said about Ursula's love life. Things were not going well in that department. In fact, things were pretty bad. So let's talk about Ursula's boyfriend. Ursula had been dating 25-year-old Matias Ezequiel Martinez, who was actually a police officer with the Buenos Aires police force. Now, they had a very rough relationship, and just trigger warning, we are going to be talking about domestic violence right now. Ursula would often confide in her friends about how much she was suffering and how scared she was for her life while she was dating Matias. Matias would physically abuse her. She would actually send these voice memos to her friends saying these really, really sad things. I don't think I'm going to play the voicemails here. I'm not sure. If not, I will have them linked down below because you can find them online. And the reason why we know word for word what she said is because her friends have published these voice memos because they want people to see and hear how scared Ursula was and how serious this was. So in the voice memos, she would say things, for example, I can't take it anymore. I swear I'm so sad. He told me he's going to kill me. I can't stand it anymore. He's almost broken my hand. I can't even move my wrist. I swear. I'm really scared. I want to leave this place. He pulled all my hair. He beat the crap out of me. There's a lot of more voicemails that you guys can hear. They're all just really intense to listen to, and they just break my heart because in most of them, Ursula is literally sobbing. Like, she's crying and she just sounds so distressed, and it breaks my heart to think about how an 18-year-old girl was going through something like this. Like, she's 18 years old and she's dealing with an abusive relationship with a guy who is tormenting her, and it breaks my heart. Now, not only would Matias threaten to kill Ursula, but he would also threaten to kill himself if she didn't see him in person, if she stopped talking to him. So he would kind of use the threat of like, oh, I'm gonna, unalive myself if you don't see me, as a way to like manipulate Ursula into getting to meet him in person. So he would just, again, not only threaten her, but also threaten himself. And there was this one time that he told Ursula to meet him in the outskirts of the city by a river. And Ursula didn't want to go meet him there because, of course, it's like really sketchy. Like, why are you trying to meet me by a river all by ourselves? So she said, no, I'm not going to meet you. And this, of course, made Matias so angry that he actually told her, quote, what could I do to you? Kill you and throw you in the water? Which is an insane thing to say. I mean, why is his mind even thinking that? Her friends say that when she began dating Matias, she grew really isolated from her friends and that they would barely see her anymore. I watched so many interviews for this case, you guys. Like, it's actually crazy how much footage there is out there of Ursula's friends friends talking about her, of her family talking about her, of the prosecutors, police. Like, there's just a lot of research to go through for this video. But one thing that I do remember sticking out to me as I did the research is that pretty much all of her friends did say that Ursula just stopped talking to them as soon as she started dating Matias. Like, a couple of the friends were like, yeah, like she used to come to my house all the time. We used to go to coffee shops. We used to like go to the mall. But then as soon as she started dating this man, she just wouldn't reach out to them anymore. And of course, they know that this wasn't like her decision. Like, it's not like Ursula was like, yeah, I don't want my friends anymore, like whatever. It was this man controlling her and just trying to isolate her and remove her from any type of social life or any type of friendships. Ursula one time did reach out to a friend for a psychologist's contact info so that she could get in touch with them, but the friend didn't specify exactly why Ursula wanted the psychologist. A lot of people can imagine that she probably just felt really trapped in this relationship and she just needed someone to talk to professionally. So that was one time that she had reached out to her friend, but her friend was even like surprised that Ursula reached out to her because it had been so long since they had talked or seen each other. Now, Ursula didn't want her family to know about what was happening, so she would tell them that everything was great and that Matias was like a great boyfriend and that they were very happy together, which of course was a lie. I understand Ursula's perspective of not wanting to tell her parents this. I mean, I remember when I was dating at 18 years old, like I didn't really want to share stuff with my parents, or like if I broke up with someone, I didn't want to share it with them. So I understand being 18 years old and like not wanting to tell your parents about something that's going on because maybe you think that you can control it yourself, that you can fix it yourself, that you don't need their help, or you're just like embarrassed to tell them. So I definitely don't think we should judge, Ursula for not saying anything. However, she would tell her friends, as I mentioned, and her friends actually went straight to her parents to inform them of what was happening because they felt like if they didn't tell the parents, then Ursula would end up dead. I know Ursula trusted her friends to keep this a secret, but of course the friends had to tell her parents, for her own safety. When Ursula's parents found out, they just couldn't believe it because, again, Ursula had been telling them that everything was good, that everything was happy. So now that they knew the truth, they were really scared for their daughter and they just wanted to help her. Matias would also sit outside her house in his cop car to just monitor what she was doing, and he just wanted to control everything that she did. Now, she did formally report what was happening, and there was actually a restraining order put into place, but nothing was actually done to enforce it. It's not like there was any electronic anklets placed on Matias. There was no patrols outside her home or anything. And according to the family, this restraining order was basically just like a piece of paper. What could a piece of paper truly do? Matias, of course, violated this restraining order, and Ursula did report it to the police, but again, nothing was done. The day Matias violated the restraining order for the first time, Ursula was driving on her motorcycle when Matias pulled up next to her in his car and began shouting things to her, and then he tried to get her to get off the motorcycle. Ursula fled by running a red light, and thankfully she was able to get away from him in that moment. What's crazy is that a friend of hers actually witnessed this entire interaction. She saw the entire thing go down, and this made Ursula feel so much hope because now there was a witness to the abuse and a witness that saw Matias violate the restraining order. Now she could go to the police with proof, with a witness of this violation, and hopefully he would get arrested, because if you violate a restraining order, you should go to jail. So Ursula felt a lot of relief with this. She actually sent this friend a voice message saying, quote, "Ay amiga, I swear my soul returned to my body." You saw it?
Sí, amiga, yo tengo una perimetral con él y él la rompió a la perimetral, entonces fui a denunciarlo de nuevo. Sí, me amenazó, me dijo que quería hablar conmigo, que me baje de la moto. Ay, amiga, ¿en serio lo viste? Necesito testigos. Fui cuando estaba ahí, fui directamente a comisaría a denunciarlo. Ay, amiga, te juro que me volvieron al cuerpo. ¿Vos lo viste?
So she was just so hopeful that something would be done, but unfortunately, even after reporting this, nothing was done, which is crazy because there was literally a witness that saw the violation happen, but police just didn't seem to care. A lot of people wonder if the reason why Matias was receiving so much leniency is because he was also a police officer. Another time, she actually went with her mother to report the abuse to authorities, and they were told that they couldn't actually take down her report because it was the weekend and that they would have to wait until Monday. I mean, imagine going to report your partner for abusing you and then you're told that no one can help you since it's a weekend. It's terrible. And what's so crazy is I just talked about the Giselle Garrido case where her parents were told the same thing. Her parents went to report her disappearance and they were like, oh, it's a Saturday, like we don't work on Saturdays. Like what? It's just cases like these just make me so angry, and I know that not every police officer is bad and etc., but it just really just shows you how it's very hard to get police to care about you and to care about your loved ones. So anyways, they didn't take the report because it was a weekend. And of course, Ursula and her mom were just left like with their jaw on the floor. They were like, really? Like, I'm trying to report this abuse and you're not going to take me seriously? Now, since there were so many reports made against Matias, he was actually placed on psychiatric leave from his work and he did have his weapon taken away from him. But again, that didn't change anything. The abuse was still ongoing. Ursula was supposed to receive a panic button in the case of any attacks, but unfortunately, the panic button arrived too late. Unfortunately, arrived after her death.
Que me van a dar el botón antipánico porque anoche yo estaba en la casa de mi abuela con las vecinas afuera y él pasó como 5 veces por ahí, no me deja en paz. Así que nada.
Now, it wasn't only Ursula who suffered from his abuse. His ex-partners did as well. Ursula didn't know what else to do in this relationship, so she actually befriended one of Matias' ex-girlfriends named Belen. Ursula contacted Belen on Instagram just 3 days before her death, and they met in person and they chatted for about an hour. Belen said that she understood exactly what Ursula was going through. There was this one time that Matias got home from work for his lunch break, and he actually got mad at Belen's kids for wetting their bed. He began screaming and hitting things, yelling and asking why the children were not in their own beds. And when Belen told him that if he didn't like it, he could leave, this made Matias really angry. He grabbed her by the neck and threw her against a wall and then to the floor. He actually pointed his weapon at her and then he put the weapon in his mouth and threatened to kill himself. Belen said she was screaming, and when she tried grabbing her cell phone, he hit her and then took her phone. Her children witnessed the entire thing, which is absolutely so disturbing and so sad to think about. Belen says that she doesn't know how she did it, but she managed to push him out and she actually closed the door and then she fled to her brother's house, which was right across the street from hers. She said that her children told her that they should all hide in the bathroom because if Matias saw them, he would kill them. She couldn't return to her own home for 2 months and Matias would show up at her workplace as well to stalk her. She has been very verbal, after what happened to Ursula, and she's been doing so many interviews talking about this. Now, she did report the abuse, but unfortunately nothing was done besides transferring Matias to another police station. When his superior told him that he was going to be transferred, Matias said, quote, "If they transfer me, I will throw..." What kind of a person says something like that? Like, what in the world? His response was, of course, investigated by internal affairs, but he ultimately ended up transferring and that was it. So his relationship was now done with Belen. That's just absolutely traumatizing what Belen had to go through in front of her children and what her children had to go through. It's just so sad how this man was reported so many times, but nothing was done about it. So after this happened with Belen, Mateas was transferred to a new police station, and there he met his co-worker named Florencia, who was also a police officer. The two of them met and they began dating. Unfortunately, Mateas ended up abusing Florencia as well, and then he even ended up R-wording Florencia's 13-year-old disabled niece. It's horrible. I can't. When I read that, my jaw literally just fell to the floor. I mean, this guy is absolutely evil. He R-worded a 13-year-old girl. His girlfriend's niece. Like, it's horrible. At the beginning of the relationship, Matias told Florencia that his ex-girlfriends were the crazy ones, which I'm like, I feel like that's a red flag if you start dating someone and they just keep saying that their exes are crazy. It's like, no, you're probably the crazy one. So he kept saying that his ex-girlfriends were crazy, that they were the ones who chased after him and provoked him, and Florencia didn't really know what to believe until he started abusing her. Matias would control everything Florencia did. He would look through her phone, delete contacts. He would get mad if she would laugh at messages on her phone, and then the physical abuse began. I'm not going to go too deep into the physical abuse because it is very disturbing and it's very graphic, but after he would abuse her, he would often sit next to her and cry and apologize and would say stuff of like, I don't know why I'm doing this, like I love you, like I don't mean to hurt you. It was just all so horrible. So as you can see, Mateas had a history of abusing his partners. He abused Belen, then he abused Florencia, and now Ursula. In December of 2020, a prosecutor ordered the arrest of Matias for the R-wording of Florencia's niece. However, when it came time to detain him, a judge named Marcelo was on vacation and he didn't want to go open the prosecutor's office, so Matias wasn't detained. Yeah, this is real, you guys. Like, I'm telling you, doing the research for this case made me so angry. First, people don't want to take Ursula's abuse reports because it's a weekend. And now the judge that was set to arrest Matias for R-wording a minor was on vacation and didn't want to go open in the office. So when the judge returned from his vacation, he was asked again to take care of this, but he never did it. So now there were 2 times when Matias could have been arrested, but wasn't. First time for R-wording a minor, and then the second time for violating the restraining order. It's just so unfair, and I just don't understand why these people are police officers or why they're judges if they don't really do their jobs, and it seems like they don't really care about helping people. A lot of people feel like if the judge had arrested him for the R-wording, and if the other officers had arrested him for violating the restraining order, then he would have been behind bars, he would have been sent to trial, and, Ursula's death could have possibly been prevented. It was also discovered that just 4 hours before Ursula's death, she had voice messaged Florencia and said that she had proof that could put Mateas behind bar for the R-wording of her niece, and asked if she could speak with her in person. Florencia said there were just so many chances to have Mateas put behind bars, but no one listened to them. 3 women kept reporting this man for abuse and for R-wording someone, and nothing was done. So that's just a brief summary on Mateas and his history with relationships. Now, going back to Belen and Ursula, as I mentioned, Ursula had contacted Belen on Instagram and asked her to meet in person because she was scared of Matias. They did meet up just 3 days before Ursula was killed, and while they were talking, Belen says that she saw like hundreds of messages from Matias asking where she was, who she was talking to, what she was doing, and that Ursula was like, look at these messages that I'm getting, look at how he's harassing me, look at how he's stalking me, and that Ursula also showed her proof of all the abuse. She had photos of her bruises, she had photos of the hair that he pulled out, the damages on her motorcycle, everything. Belen says that it was just too much for her to handle because of course it brought her memories of like when she was in a relationship with Mateas and all the abuse, but of course she wanted to help Ursula and be there for her. Belen said that before they said goodbye that night, Ursula told her, "If they kill me, you know who did it." Just so incredibly eerie. She also tweeted, quote, "I never thought I would be reporting gender violence. I want to be the last to do it." She also then posted on an Instagram story and said, quote, "If I don't return one day, destroy everything." Basically insinuating like, if something happens to me, destroy everything. Destroy the town, destroy everything to look for me and to get justice. The fact that she was even thinking about that, thinking about how she could possibly die because of this man is absolutely heartbreaking. Ursula reported the abuse. She told friends. She was vocal about it on social media, but it just seems like that wasn't enough. Now, a few days before her death, Matias actually messaged her and asked if they could meet up to clear things up. According to her friends, they think that Ursula went to meet him in hopes that he actually meant what he said and that he wanted to fix things, and she hoped that this meant that the abuse would finally end. But unfortunately, the day that Ursula met with Matias, she was murdered. They met on February 8th, 2021. That day, Matias was actually requested to go to the prosecutor's office to inform him of the measures being taken against him because he violated the restraining order, and he was also warned of the consequences that he would face if he violated these new measures. Now, I wasn't able to find exactly what they told him, but again, a lot of people assume that the prosecutor's office was like, hey, we need to talk about what happened because you violated the restraining order. Now, since they were going to talk to him about what was going to happen to him for violating this restraining order, a lot of people feel like this is maybe what pushed Mateas to commit this crime. Maybe it made him angry at Ursula for turning him in and for, reporting his violation to the police, and that's possibly what could have pushed him to, meet Ursula. So that day, Matias met with the prosecutor's office, and then later he met up with Ursula. At around 4:30 p.m., Ursula was caught on surveillance footage driving to a local store. She parked outside the store, got off her bike, and then walked across the street to another store to buy some chocolate. Unfortunately, this is when she walked out of the camera's sight, so what exactly happened between when she arrived at the store to buy chocolate and when she was murdered is unknown. Investigators believe that Matias picked her up in his car and then they began driving. We're not sure if Matias told Ursula that they were going to go talk at a park, at a coffee shop, or somewhere public, but investigators believe that as he was driving her, he deviated from the route that they were supposed to take and then took Ursula to an isolated area. And then there, he killed her. After committing this terrible crime, he actually called his uncle and told him, quote, "I made a mistake." And he asked the uncle to come help him figure out what to do. I'm not sure if he wanted his uncle to help him hide the body, to hide evidence, or what. But thankfully, the uncle did not help his nephew, and he actually called the police and told them that he believed his nephew had just murdered a woman. Now, from what I understood, according to the articles, Mateas had told his uncle where he was. He gave him the exact address, and then the uncle gave that address to police. So, police showed up to this address at around 8:30 p.m., and when they got there, Mateas looked really confused. They believed that he was probably expecting his uncle to arrive to, help him get rid of stuff, but when police arrived, he was just so shocked that his uncle had pretty much turned him in. Officers say that Mateas was sitting in his car with a pool of blood near his stomach and that he was injured. Now, investigators believe that his injury was self-inflicted and that Mateas did this to either unalive himself but accidentally failed, or he did this to make it seem like Ursula had attacked him first and that he had to attack her back in self-defense. When asked what happened, Mateas just pointed to Ursula's body, which was on the ground in the grass near the car, covered in blood. Mateas did try running away, but he was quickly stopped by police, detained, and then taken to the hospital to treat his injuries. Back at the crime scene, a knife was found covered in blood inside Mateas' car, which was determined to be the murder weapon. Ursula's autopsy revealed that she had been stabbed 15 times in the back, with her cause of death being the stabs to her neck, which resulted in hypovolemic shock. She also had her finger cut off. After her body was found, protests were held demanding justice for her death. People were just so outraged that Ursula's cries for help were unanswered, and people actually went to the police station Mateas worked at and began throwing stones, destroying things, breaking windows, and they even lit a police car on fire. They did all of this to demand justice and make sure that this time Ursula wouldn't be ignored. Police responded to this protest with rubber bullets, and one of Ursula's friends actually got shot in the eye, and this was all caught on video. She nearly went blind in that eye. In the end, there were 5 adults and 4 minors arrested for the riot, but they didn't care that they were arrested. People just wanted Ursula's murder to not be ignored. On February 9th, at Ursula's funeral, hundreds of people gathered, and in silence, they said their goodbyes to Ursula. Only sounds of weeping were heard. Her family had to say their final goodbyes to her, and Patricia said that she was just lying over her daughter's coffin, sobbing, and that she promised her daughter that she would get justice for her death. Ursula's aunt, Graciela, the one that I mentioned earlier, spoke out and said, quote, "I thought Ursula was going to be the last one, but the day after she was murdered, another girl was murdered." The femicides in Argentina have been on the rise, and Ursula's death fueled women to demand justice for her and for every other murdered girl. Patricia said that the day her daughter was murdered, she actually messaged her daughter at around 8:28 p.m. and told her that dinner will be ready soon, and that Ursula texted her back saying, quote, "Going, Mom." She now says that it was Mateas who replied to her, not her daughter, since according to the autopsy, Ursula was already dead at this point, which is so disturbing. I don't understand how Mateas planned on getting away with this. Maybe he thought he could hide Ursula's body and just pretend that she ran away, which is why he texted the mom pretending to be Ursula to keep up the act. It's horrible. Can you imagine later finding out that your daughter's killer was the one texting you? Patricia also said that when she was at the morgue with Ursula, she was holding her hand, and that's when she noticed that one of her fingers was pretty much like falling off, and that the gold ring Ursula would wear on that finger was gone. At first, the family and the police believed that maybe Mateas stole it, or that she was trying to defend herself and that she accidentally broke her finger while she was defending herself and that the ring flew off, but this wasn't able to be confirmed. Her family says that all that's left is to fight for justice, and that's exactly what they're going to do. Now, Pope Francisco actually got involved, and he even called Patricia and gave his condolences to her and said that Ursula is now with God. I mean, that's how big this case was. An ex-boyfriend of Ursula named Oliver came out and he wrote kind of like a goodbye letter to Ursula on Twitter. It's a little bit long, but I'll just kind of include some of the parts that stuck out to me the most. He wrote, quote, "At first, like everyone else, I couldn't believe it. I felt an emptiness in the pit of my stomach and a lump formed in my throat. A part of me thought it was a lie, that they had confused you with another girl." He also said he wishes that he could have done more when Ursula went to him telling him that she was in an abusive relationship. He recalls their happy moments that they had together when they were in a relationship and how big of a smile Ursula had. He ended this goodbye letter with, quote, "As they always say, life goes on, but it is up to us to not forget what happened Berlin on February 8th, 2021. Not to forget that this could have been avoided. Not to forget Ursula, who left physically but will never leave our memory and our hearts. Hashtag justice for Ursula. Ursula was loved by so many, and her light was stolen from everyone by Mateas. When Florencia, one of the ex-girlfriends, found out about Ursula's murder, she said that she just burst into tears and that she felt the same thing again, just like a lot of pain. She felt bad because she saw herself in Ursula and, she put herself into her place, like this could have been her. When the other ex, Belen, found out, she cried so much. Oh my God, her interviews are so intense, you guys. She has a couple of interviews out and she just is crying so much, and she's just like, this is so unfair because like just a couple of days before I was talking to her about this and giving her advice, and then days later she was found dead. She says that women just cannot stay silent, that even if it's only like a small push or like a small hit, anything, that you have to speak up because what happened to Ursula can happen to anyone and it just can't happen again. She was like, if only our reports were taken seriously, maybe Ursula would still be with us today. I just can't imagine the pain that his ex-partners felt after learning about what happened to Ursula. It's just horrible what all of them went through. After the news was out about what Matias did, his sisters actually came forward and they gave an interview. They said they were clearly not going to defend their brother's actions because he killed someone and he needs to pay for what he did, but that they want the public to understand that he not only destroyed Ursula's family, but he also destroyed his own. The sisters said that their mom was going through such a difficult time after hearing the news that her son was a killer. They were in disbelief that their brother was capable of this, and just finding out, of course, affected them so much because they say that they never really saw that behavior from their brother. They said that a lot of people were inventing things, saying that their brother would hit Ursula in front of them, that he would hit their mom, that he would hit them, that he would even like R-word his own grandma. Like people were making pretty bold statements, but the sisters were like, that's not real. Like we never saw him abuse Ursula in front of us. He never abused us. He never abused our mom. He never touched our grandmother. So they just wanted to come out and clarify those rumors. I don't know where those rumors started, to be honest. I know a couple of Ursula's friends have come out and stated that Matias would hit Ursula in front of his sisters. So I don't know if the sisters are maybe just denying this. I'm not really sure, but the interview with the sisters is very interesting. If they honestly didn't know anything about the abuse, I do feel bad for them because they probably saw their brother in such a different way, and they did offer their condolences to Ursula's family, and again they did say, we're not siding with my brother, like he should go to jail for what he did, but they just wanted to come out and clarify some rumors. I can't imagine finding out that my own sibling did something so terrible, especially like a brother doing that to another woman. I just can't even imagine how shocking that must have been for his family. So after being arrested, Matias was placed in preventative prison accused of femicide aggravated by treachery, cruelty, and premeditation. So while he was behind bars, the investigation went on. However, 2 weeks after he murdered Ursula on February 22nd, 2021, Matias was actually sentenced to 4 years in prison for aggravated minor injuries and aggravated threats to his past partner Belen for abusing her back in 2017. Because remember, Belen had reported this abuse so many times, so I don't know why it took so many years for her to get justice. Like, it's actually kind of crazy. I don't know if maybe because he was arrested for Ursula's murder, police decided to now finally go through all the other reports the woman had made. But yes, while he was in jail awaiting the trial for Ursula, he was sentenced to 4 years for abusing Belen. Those 4 years would be combined with his eventual sentence for the murder of Ursula. After learning that she got justice for her abuse, Belen felt so much relief in her heart and said, quote, "Thank you, God, for never letting me fail. Seeing him was something that will never be erased in my life, but I gathered courage and looked him in the face. I took off that big backpack that I had been carrying for 4 years. Thank you, and thank you everyone for the unconditional support from the heart." Like I said, it's unfortunate that it took so long for her reports to be taken seriously. And again, she's like, if only they had listened to me from the start, Ursula would still be alive today. So after being sentenced to 4 years for abusing Belen, it was now time for his trial in regards to Ursula. On December 14th, 2021, Matias was sentenced to life in prison for the murder of Ursula. Now, his defense was trying to argue that he was acting in self-defense, which again is why a lot of people feel like he, injured himself to kind of add on to that story. So they were trying to make it seem like Ursula had attacked him first and that they were fighting, etc. Which is terrible. I can't believe they were trying to go with that narrative. Thankfully, that narrative did not work, and on December 14th, 2021, Matias was found guilty and sentenced to life in prison for the murder of Ursula. When Patricia learned of the sentence, she said, quote, "I thought I would feel relieved, but it's a lie. It's a lie you tell yourself as a mom to block your feelings. Feelings can't be blocked by anything." Although Matias was in prison, this family still just felt like justice wasn't served. So many people let Ursula down. 1 year after Ursula's tragic death, the family organized a march with civil organizations, feminist groups, and members of the community to get the judges who ignored Ursula's complaints removed from their position. Hundreds of people marched demanding those who failed Ursula to be held responsible. Along with the march, they also held a mass for her in her memory. So one of the judges that they wanted to be removed from their position was Judge Marcelo. Now remember, he's the one that was on vacation and didn't want to go open the office to arrest Matias for R-wording a minor. So he was not a good person at all. Like if he had done his job and just ignored his freaking vacation, then Matias would have been arrested. He probably would have been sentenced to, I don't know, a couple of years for R-wording a young girl, and then Ursula would probably still be alive. So the family and the community wanted that judge to be removed from their position, and they also wanted a second judge named Luciano to be removed. Now, Patricia says that when she told Judge Luciano about Matias abusing her daughter, the judge said that Matias wasn't a dangerous guy and he didn't really offer them any help. The only help he did offer them was by requesting a panic button for Ursula, which, like I mentioned, didn't arrive until after her death. So the family was like, you know what, he should have done more. He should have given her the panic button in the moment. He should have listened to us. He should have done so much, but they just felt like he acted with laziness. So they wanted him to be removed from his position as a judge, which I think is understandable, especially the judge that didn't want to open the office because he was on vacation. Like, he made a huge mistake. The family has made a petition for the removal of these judges, which I will try to find and link down below. A member of Mumala, which is a feminist organization, spoke out and said, quote, "We're so outraged and sad. Ursula's case shows us on a massive scale what women who suffer gender-based violence have to confront. What happens is a question of complicity and protection of the man from the get-go." She also expressed how much harder it is to get answers and protection when the perpetrator is a member of security forces. In the first 2 months of 2021, there were 38 femicides in only 2 months, and 4 of those were by the police or military. So I definitely think that because Matias was in the police force, he was able to get away with a lot, especially because he violated restraining orders, he would stalk people, but yet he was never removed from his position. Yeah, he was on leave for psychological treatment, but then he was placed back into the force. So I don't understand why someone that's going through psychological treatment and is stalking people is allowed to be a police officer. Life after Ursula's death has just been very hard for the family, especially for Patricia. She said, "It feels like yesterday. At 53 years old, I feel like my life is ending." She lost 45 kilos from not being able to eat. She said she doesn't leave her house other than to go to the grocery store, and that she's just going through a really difficult time because every single night she just cries herself to sleep because she feels so alone, and at least other mothers have other children. Not that you can replace one kid with another, but Ursula was her only child, so she feels literally alone. She says that she does receive psychological help, but is still just very stressed all the time and just always very nervous. She keeps Ursula's room intact exactly how it was when she was murdered. Unfortunately, Patricia did receive so many threats for trying to get justice for her daughter, so she now lives with permanent security and they go with her whenever she leaves the house. People have broken into her home, they have broken her windows, they have threatened her with weapons and with knives. She says that she feels like she's a very wanted person for speaking out about this. Now, unfortunately, Ursula's parents are no longer together. They divorced after her death, but her father says that every time Ursula's favorite team plays, he turns on the TV and has a game on as a tribute to her. On what would have been Ursula's 19th birthday, Patricia said, quote, "I want to tell you that I'm not the same and you all should be very careful with what I am now. I am a broken woman, more of a fighter. I became cold, selective, and independent. I transformed my wounds and my scars into tattoos so I don't forget you." Patricia did end up getting a tattoo of what Ursula posted on social media before her death, saying, quote, "If I don't return one day, destroy everything." She put this as a reminder to keep fighting for her daughter and to keep her story alive. She says Ursula's right to be a mother, to have a child, to have a job, a career, to get married one day, it was all stolen from her, and she will work as hard as she needs to in order to make sure that all the people who stole that from her daughter are held responsible. She wants to do her part in changing the justice system that does not act quickly enough to save women, and a justice system that protects killers just because they're authoritative figures. The day before Ursula was murdered, she tweeted, quote, "I want to sleep 1,000 years and let all my sadness go away." And that tweet just broke my heart. You can just tell that at this point, Ursula knew that something was going to happen to her. As I mentioned, it's very difficult to listen to cases like this, but it's important to keep her story alive and to spread awareness. I'm just really happy that justice was served in a way. I know it's not something that makes the family happy, but at least this guy is behind bars. Hopefully he will stay in prison for the rest of his life, and I just hope that people do learn from this case, that there are changes made in the justice system, in the police force in Argentina, and that things like this just don't happen again. The fact that 3 different women had reported this man and he was still just out and about is actually insane, and things just need to change and things need to be different, and we just need to do better. With that, that is the case of Ursula Bahillo. I would love to know what you guys think about this case down below. I really want to hear your thoughts on this. I know it's really intense to listen to, but I really appreciate you guys being here and taking the time to listen to what happened to Ursula. If there's ever any other cases that you would like me to cover, please let me know in the comments down below, or you can submit it to my case suggestion form, which is in the description box. I think I only have like 2 more videos coming out this year, and then I'm going to go on like a little holiday break. So yeah, we're about to wrap up the year. This year has been intense. I'm like, all these cases really are just, they're too much to handle. So I'm like, I'm ready to kind of take a break from true crime because I feel like lately all the cases have just been very intense. But yeah, I think that's pretty much all I have to say. Thank you again so much for being here, and I will see you all in the next video. Bye guys.